Well, this is, look, I could film this all day and every day of my life, that this is just normal house noise. And it's like intermittent. It's like the people outside playing a game with you, because it's like as soon as I opened the door here to the to this little part of the place, the laundry, basically the noise come through the window, just as if I go to another part. It depends, of course, on how you're feeling or what you're thinking, and also whether you're turning the mobile on too. I actually expected the sound to go off as soon as I turned the mobile on. That way you can't record it. As you can see, it's gone off, but now they're shouting outside, but that won't be picked up by the mobile. Maybe I can open the door and show it. I'm not sure. Don't really want to. They're laughing. They're actually laughing out loud, but the mobile won't pick that up. But also, they laugh at me on the computer, like the serious people on there, which are really part of the Android control system. They will actually be telling you the truth and reflecting back your own thoughts and ideas and getting you to empathise with them, literally, or relate to them. Sometimes both, depending on how awake or aware you are. And and they'll actually start laughing in the middle of their videos. Not really loud, but it will look as though it's friendly and part of the video, or even makes them more real, shall we say. But it's really them directly laughing at how much control they have, and just the fact that I'm engaging with them, or watching them, or giving them admiration, or just, you know, focusing on them, even whether it be outside here with the noise, even though they've stopped it now. But I might just show that I'm always surrounded by a military control force, but it's not very obvious because there is no traffic on the street. Normally I get the cars pulling in and out even outside the house, but of course the minute if I decided to just walk down my small dead-end street, the cars will immediately come on. See, we have the military men there pretending to be average council workmen, but they're not, of course. I'm just turning my back on it because I don't want to be obvious, even though most of them have been, unfortunately, given access to the human mind. That means that they can know what you're doing and read your thoughts, more or less. Even if they were just watching you, they would, you know, when they're what they call micro-managing and micro-watching you, then of course they are going to understand what you're thinking and feeling by your reactions. And they're experts, I'm told, at body language, and they watch your every expression. This I know for a fact because I've observed it in personal relationships, where they jump down your throat and literally try to control your every facial expression, your every word. It's quite ridiculous. Here comes a military truck past on the street, but a military patrol control truck that looks like a regular vehicle. But when you have these trucks and these vehicles all around you all the time, 24/7, you realise this. But also, usually they are aggressive and noisy. They've obviously gone quiet because I'm filming, because they don't mind me filming a little bit, but not a lot. If I had had support over the last, say, since this all happened, or at least where they came out and showed their patrol control force that was around me in a very controlling way. In other words, where they were you know, not subtle about it, and showing that they were opposed to you, that they didn't like you getting around, that they didn't like what you were doing, even just basic human things. Just basic human things they don't like, because they're micro watching you, as they say. That's how I noticed it too, because I couldn't fathom it out. When this patrol control force came down on me, heading up towards nearly 7 years at the end of the year, and it got worse and worse as they tried to control me more and affect me more. Because the minute you ignore certain things, or try to ignore certain things, then they bring more on, you know. So if you see that military truck's just gone back past again, can you see it? Oh, it was too quick for me, but it actually went back past. That just showed that it was a patrol truck, because it basically just went down to the end of the street, sat there for a while, and then come back. That's just to distract me from what I'm doing, so that I can't concentrate on what I'm saying. And it's successful every time, as you can probably see. If anyone or anything listens to the videos, I'm probably more likely to get anythings listening rather than anyone, or any real person, any normal person. But I feel like a stupid, futile fool saying it, even, because all the demigods and all the androids that control the internet with their videos and their truth-seeking, truth-telling advocates, or whatever you want to call them, I don't know what you call them. I have to use fancy words because they use the same words. Basically, they read the human thought, they know what I'm thinking, and they download it before I can even put it into a video, or even get it clear in my mind. Because don't forget, the technology is very advanced, I guess, so I see most of my thoughts being downloaded directly onto the computer. But at the same time, some of the stuff that I half recognise as my own, but don't fully have it clear, is taken from what they call your unconscious part of your mind, or the part, because as we're told, more than 3/4 of the real human mind is not accessible. This is done deliberately, I think, when you were born. And maybe there's a spiritual reason for it, but it seems unfathomable. Maybe you're meant to find your way back or something, or your way home to what you really are, or back to your what is part of you, your creator, back to like creation, the source, all these words that we can use to describe, because, or back to God, It doesn't matter. But either way, it's just back to what you, depending on who you are and what you think about things, it's just back to what you would have liked to have been or meant to be from when you're born. Most of us feel as though we've went off away from what we originally were. That's why most of us are not happy. You know, because bit like you know, I was told this when I was a child by a relative, that they used to say maybe they're further off from heaven than when they were a boy. That was when they were old. And at some level they knew they had, you know, and they definitely had departed from God too, so they were aware of it, but they didn't change it. They basically were away from that, but they told themselves most of the time that they were okay. And that, of course, was the problem in, you know, your, in their, you know, in their associations with any people, really. They were not, you know, they did not connect at all in any way to most people. And if they did, it was, you know, not real, and not, they probably didn't really relate to anyone, I wouldn't think. That's certainly, but it doesn't, but that's, I've gone off the track and become confused here, so I'll just, but the sound stopped, so maybe I should stop. I wanted to make a video, but at the same time I wasn't prepared to make one. I wanted to make one maybe tomorrow when I've got a bit more energy, but when that sound come up, I'm like, any loud sound, you know, because if it's loud enough, the mobile can record it, whereas most of the sounds that are coming into my ears from outside and around, apart from when I actually go right out, are not recordable. I don't take the mobile out with me. I should have. This is the point that I was getting at, was that I should have, if I had had support, and of course I could also say that it was my fault too, because obviously my own insecurities and fears have stopped me from, you know, stopped me from going out and being able to film the noise situation that is continual when you go outside. Like basically anywhere you go, anywhere you sit, any place, they will bring some mechanical noise or people making. Oh, those poor dogs opposite. What is happening to them? Listen to that barking. It doesn't. It sounds like the people trying to use the dogs to get attention, so they're probably being forced to bark. I've noticed that around this neighbourhood with the so-called dog lovers. Every single person walks a dog. Every single person either walks a dog, pushes a pram, or does some apparently real beneficial activity. But it is largely a camouflage for them hiding the reality that they are not really in connection with any real life. This is what I have observed. This is, you can see it if you actually observe, like, people around you, like say in your own street. you know it because you can see the same people on a reasonably regular basis, and you accidentally will observe them because they're always there. And it's the same around the streets in your local area, but not to that extent, but it's still the same observation. Also, just the reality that everyone copies those same things that you're interested in or that they know you would do or have done. And that doesn't click for quite a long time. It didn't occur to me for a long time. I always wondered why certain things, but I didn't associate with them as them copying and trying to imitate a human being. I didn't realise that, but I realise it, of course, now. Thought there was some people outside the door. Actually, they're playing possum. In other words, they're actually not very obvious out there today, and yet it is daytime, so normally there would be, even outside on the street, a lot of activity. I did show you that they've got the activity right next door almost there with the military patrol control force pretend workmen. They do legitimate work, but it's also part of the control system. Here we have the one coming in next door straight away. That was where the dogs were barking too, but there's more than one person. You see how he pulls in? Actually, he's quiet too. Normally he is very loud, but he must know that I'm filming, so he has not made his normal astronomical noise with the car as it pulls in and out, shall we say. That's you know, these are you know, they're your masculine androids. You have masculine and feminine androids. In other words, although they are duality beings, which means they are two in one, and probably from their point of view, they see it as combining and being the best of both worlds, which is an interesting way of looking at it. And certainly the androgynes, even the elite symbols of masculinity, femininity, whatever you want to call it, whatever form they take or whatever direction they, or whatever side of the fence they predominantly project out, they, you know, depending on how well one is made, shall we say, but that also is natural conception too, like different people turn out different. But that will depend on whether you think it's all predetermined or whether it is just, you know, random natural occurrence. But if you are more religiously inclined or believe in higher things, especially from a human standpoint, that you think the human is the centre of the earth anyway, while you're here, and certainly when you've got these patrollers and controllers around you, you do feel that way. That actually emphasises how a human being is a creator, and you realise that, whereas before that you tend to feel insignificant and very much like little in the real world. Of course, in reality, like myself, you are little in the real world because you are always surrounded by either the demigod program on the computer or what you think the real world is. In other words, those that are like influential and powerful in the world, so you're very much aware of that, so you're aware of your limitations, but also the trolling androids that are all around you in your real civilian life or in your local area, etc. So it's a two-way limiting, suppressing human program or system, or just a community surveillance control system that's around you. But at a knowledgeable world level, you're aware of the demigods. They're the most famous people. In other words, those that you might hear about and that you're influenced by, that you're impressed by, that you might even admire and look up to. And that of course, with the invention, or the not invention, but the deliberate bringing in by the technical God entity of the reality, you have the computer controlling, the internet. Like, I literally am looking at a truth teller reading my mind and other human beings' mind, but largely my mind. Because don't forget that whatever I turn on my screen is going to be what interests me. As I become more aware of things, then I turn on and see a reflection where the demigod will reflect back to me my thoughts, my ideas, and even clarify them and do it much better than what I could. Like I say, if I thought something yesterday, today I'll be looking at it on the screen and they will be doing it so much better and relaying back to me the truth, or what I think is the truth, what I'm realising at a given time, and even informing me, clarifying what I am trying to fathom out or what I already know. But essentially, it's always keeping their control program, even on the computer, one step ahead of a real human being. So that way, if by some chance another real human being realised that I was a real human being and that I'm aware of all these things, they're much more likely to be relating to the demigod on the screen, as opposed to, I had to turn that off because I don't want copyright or whatever, but as opposed to, sorry there, I got when I turned it off, I lost my train of thought. But see, this is the difference, is that I'm trying to just say stuff, but the demigods have it a lot more down to a fine heart. In other words, most that are on the internet can speak my thoughts so much clearer and more, what they call, so much more to where people can understand it and relate to it. Yes, there is an interesting point that the monkeys, like, don't forget that the missing link that we're told is that human beings come from monkeys. But is it the human being that comes from monkeys, or the spiritual human being that comes from monkeys, or is it the artificial ones that really come from monkeys? And the monkeys will tell you about other monkeys. That's the name of the game on the internet. When the artificial ones send their artificial ones after you, and when the artificial ones tell you about the artificial ones sending their artificial ones after you, they're a different breed, they're made different, They come from a different maker, different source. They are creations of the God entity of Earth, which is largely a control system, because that being wants to control and does control the mind and the environment of a real spiritual human being. And that's what it is. And the difficulty, of course, is I might just turn that light off so the TV's a bit clearer if I can. Of course, I'm a very limited human being, even though I'm aware of these things. Knowledge is power, they say. At least that's what I was told, even as a child, by my relatives, even though they were definitely servants for the God of this world. Because usually, as we're now told, and you realise this only when you're very old, like myself, if you're lucky, you will realise it when you're much younger. But of course, you do realise some things, you do know things are wrong, and you do see the control. But because you think that blood is thicker than water, which was also something that was pumped into me from when I was very young. They used to always say to me, blood is thicker than water. So you assume that your relatives are close to you, even though you know that they don't really relate to you. And most human beings spend their life trying to get them to relate to them, just as in most, if you're involved in the wrong interactions or the wrong relationships, you will do that. But more than likely, as the androids on the internet will now tell you about themselves and tell you about what it is to be a human being, that basically most of the time you'll be a lot more attracted to the androids or to even psychopathic types of pretend people, because they tend to be like an empty void, as they say, or they're almost like an open invitation. They'll show you like some things where they copy you, they'll watch and copy and study you, and so therefore they'll know some things about you and they will pretend to be the same as you that way. But it will only be usually not a lot, depending on how much information they get about you, of course. If you're silly enough to put it all out there in videos, or even just think a lot like I tend to do because of my predicament, basically then they have a lot of information. But the thing is, it doesn't matter, because they want you to relate to them. They want you to then fill their empty void with your wants and needs. So therefore, my imagination and my fantasy makes these android beings, when I interact with them, much more important to me than what they should be, because I'm really just fulfilling my own fantasy. I'm putting that empty void, that open invitation. They're almost like an open invitation saying to you, I am your fantasy. Put your fantasy onto them. And you do. Because what you want from them, you imagine they do have. Especially if they pretend to relate to you in certain little areas, like whatever you're interested in, what they know you like, or what they know you, that sort of thing. And we're told this now. It's all coming out, the truth, because as human beings wake up to it, they have to put it out there. They have to do that, and they do. I'm just sorry that I can't do better on the videos and be more like the demigods or the androids that populate and control the entire internet. It's a control system. Everything is a control system. The whole Earth is really a matrix. But it's control like, I would think that like with myself, when I see the control on the internet where my thoughts are relayed back and where the entire suburb around me and the adjoining suburbs also, it just depends on how far I go. At the moment, and over the last few years, they've made me even more limited to where I'd hardly ever go even into the adjoining suburbs. But the entire inner west military council controlled area is many suburbs, and they openly acknowledge this. And so it's a total military council controlled area of about 6 or 7 suburbs, which is quite a large area, and over 200,000 people. But also the whole city of Sydney, where the inner west section or the inner west control hub, because I saw that word on a shop sign. That means the centre. That means that in the city of Sydney, Leichhardt, the suburb where I live, could well be what you'd say is the God entity's main it'd be like its main controlling area where the most of its patrolling, controlling, stalking, watching, surveilling android beings are all in combination, all in a conscious program. Or even if some were conscious and unconscious, because don't forget, if I've heard that if you submit to mind control, in other words, like many in the army, consciously, I'm told, submit to mind control. Like they're like, you can take over my mind for 8 or 9 hours of the day, and I don't care what you program or tell me to do. A bit like in that movie where you have programmed hitmen, where they literally are programmed to be a hitman, to eliminate certain people, and they do it, but they're not really conscious or aware of what they're actually doing. That type of thing. But it's the same thing, because like if I say, oh, I submit to you controlling my mind for 8 or 9 hours a day, say, and it doesn't matter what you make me do, I submit to that mind control. So if you say that, like that in that movie, if you say that I must be a hitman for that time, whereas normally, maybe you might have reservations about that type of thing, especially if you don't know what it's about, you have no reason for it, you don't know the people involved, you just assume that the powers that be that you're giving that control to know what's best. I've seen that in many movies, It's like where you agree that the mind control, or that the powers that be, or those that you're working for, understand the real situation, and that if they hire you to be a hitman to eliminate someone, that person must be a good thing or a necessity for that person to be eliminated. So you don't question it, I wouldn't think. Also, if you are a psychopathic person anyway, you probably wouldn't need to be under any form of mind control, because you would have no problem doing that, because you don't relate to any human life, and you would be the perfect candidate for that type of activity, that job. And let's be honest, all androids are the equivalent of a psychopathic, narcissistic person. In other words, they're survival machine beings. We're told this. That simply means that they only focus on their own survival 24/7. They do not relate to any life. They pretend and are personable, of course, in order to camouflage their true nature so that they can be and do what they want to, or what they think they need to, because they're survival machine beings, and because they are full of narcissism, envious narcissism, and they are extremely aware, and because they constantly watch other people, as you can imagine, and they are paranoid that other people are trying to take over from them, or I can't, it would vary obviously in the mind of different androids, I would think, but they all share that common denominator, which is why they join the military patrol community workforce in most local areas where a human being is. And I'm running out of energy here, so I didn't even intend to make this video. I just wanted to film 30 seconds or a minute of the noise, but as you can see, they've stopped the noise. And I think this is deliberate too, because I actually was trying to do something else. They've wasted my time. See, they've sidetracked me, because they're like, her videos are just a joke on her. She's talking to herself. The demigods and the demigod androgyne androids control the internet, and they speak all her truth, and they get the admiration and the respect, but also the support, which is the main thing, because don't forget, human beings are isolated like me. Like I never know what's going to happen. And that car beeped its horn outside as I said that. They want you in fear, in paranoia like them, which you are, so that they can control you, but also keep your frequency and vibration down, your mood, your feelings down, which also gives them more control, because they are negative. Androids are all psychopathic, negative duality beings, or androgyne android beings, which means everything to them, it's very hard to explain, but essentially they're anti-life. They see things, as we're told, only one way, their way. Their minds are absolutely programmed, you could say, to where they cannot see it any other way, which is why they try to control so much, and why they are part of Lucifer's control system. And I don't think I'm explaining it very well, but I don't know. I might just finish up with a little bit of music. I don't even know these songs, but I should actually go on. No, the trouble is that they're diverting my time. I'm losing the daylight, and I needed to actually do something, so that's part of it too. So unfortunately, okay, so I don't know, but this is how they get me at personal level, and even at the matrix control local level. And they laugh. have to be careful of copyright. But essentially, yes, they want you to do handstands, and they even left a loop on the street for me a few days ago, a big loop or a big, what do you call it? You know, those things that you used to skip through when you were a kid, are like a big plastic loop, as if to say you need to jump through hoops for us. And you are jumping through hoops for us, because I was stressed, paranoid about all the traffic around me, paranoid about the people around me, trying to, on that particular day, avoid even coming in close proximity to the stalking people on the street. And they were laughing as I crossed over from, at my age, trying with low energy, out of breath, trying to cross from one side of the road to the other, and the stalking, patrolling android people would be on both sides, and they'd be coming in front of you and behind you, to where basically you were always going to cross their path, and they were like laughing and saying, give it away. And actually that's really the bottom line, is that it's almost like submit and allow them to come past you and stalk you and take, you know, and make you feel suppressed as they go past, you know. And essentially that's, you know, at least the seducing demigods on the screen, they may make you do handstands for them, and they may get your attention and your admiration, but at least I have a choice whether I turn it on and off. But I suppose that's debatable too, because most people believe and trust and are unconsciously being seduced by demigods of truth even, shall we say. Because it's all about taking your time and your energy, taking your life, because my energy and my time is my lifespan, which is close to running out at a later age. So, you know, you're still being diverted by the matrix, one way or another. One way or another. And, but I prefer to be diverted by the demigods, because I think they're less harmful, because they don't seem to take my energy as predominantly, or at least as negatively. But that's only, you know, my foolish belief.